All right. Hello, everyone. I see folks trickling in from the waiting room. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to give it a minute and make sure everyone gets in here before we get started. Thanks for joining us on what, if you are on the East Coast like me, is a very cold afternoon. If you are in Arizona like James, it's a little bit warmer for you. Just a little bit.
Just bragging. Just
Yeah.
bragging.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, my name is Heath. I'm the marketing director for Core Math here at Amplify. I'm joined today by my colleague James, who's one of our product specialists who spends all of his time out on the road talking to educators just like you about Amplify Desmos Math. James is going to give us an overview of Amplify Desmos Math, walk us through a lesson, and then we'll bring us all back together for a live Q&A at the end. Before we get started, I will handle the boring logistical stuff. Um, you're going to be on mute for the duration of this webinar, but we do want to hear from you. Use the chat and Q&A features very liberally as we go. I'll keep an eye on those as James is presenting, answer what I can, and we will leave that time at the end for a live Q&A. We're also recording this session. Tomorrow you'll receive an email with a link to the recording if there's parts you'd like to revisit, or if maybe James just says something so mind-blowing that you have to share it with a colleague. That has been known to happen when James gets on a webinar. This email you get tomorrow will also include some links to sites where you can explore digital samples of the program and sign up to get in touch with somebody if you want to learn more. So all of that will be in your inbox tomorrow. Don't stress if you can't jot anything down. I think that is enough for me, from me for now. I will go ahead and turn it over to the real expert here, the star of the show, James.
Oh wow, it's not on my business card. Star of the show. I need to add that.
We'll get you some more.
Um, but let's go ahead and make sure I'm sharing the right screen. Let's get this going here. That is the wrong screen, of course. So let's bring this over. First time I've ever done this, so just joking. And make sure that Keith, you can see that okay.
Yes,
Awesome. I see that.
sir.
I see your thumbs up. That's great. Good afternoon, and I also see some of you are sharing your temperature, which I'd love more temperatures. I have a colleague in Brooklyn, and I would like to know what it's probably just as cold as it is there for you, Heath. But Thomas is rubbing it in for you with 36 degrees. So let's go ahead and get started. And I just have to say, it's hard to see on the screen, but I love this program. And so I even put on my Amplify Desmos Math shirt for you all today. As we talk about this program, I do hope after today, if there's opportunities for us to come talk to your school, talk to your district, that's what my whole team does, is we get to talk about this program and our love for it and show how it can impact students' growth and support teachers as well. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. And I'm actually going to jump in with some images here. And these are images that are actually taken directly from our program. And I bring them up here to really frame Amplify Desmos Math for you all. And I do think it's important when you're looking for a new math program and you're exploring those programs, think to yourself, what do you want that program to look and sound like? That resource, what do you want it to look and sound like? As you're looking for something to impact your classroom, whether it be if you're looking for more engagement or you're looking for more opportunities for direct instruction, you're looking for more opportunities for small group. I want you to look at these images here, and you're probably seeing yourself in them. You're seeing the structures that you hope you're seeing in a math classroom. And all those moments that I've brought up, they are here. The recipe that we follow might just be different than a traditional program that you're used to. So in Amplify Desmos Math, we are not going to start our class with, all right, everyone, watch me work out how to divide mixed numbers. That's not how we're going to start our lessons. And so you're going to see how our recipe to follow is maybe a little bit different than a traditional classroom, but it doesn't mean there's not opportunities for direct instruction or hands-on or discourse opportunities. They are all here for you. So let's jump in with a quote that I think is very powerful. And we'll kind of start with the left side here. And I think about Phil Darrow just said this so well. And I think about when I was on a math committee looking for a new math program. I actually was looking for resources that really were doing this. And how do I get my students to the answer to that problem? And finally, after some shifts in thinking and pedagogical approaches, Really what we're trying to do now is how do we use the problems to actually help students get to the math? And so as you're looking at the framing of our program, this is the essence, this is the bumper sticker of Amplify Desmos Math. And I do like to talk about some big key differentiators that make our program so successful and what we've been seeing in classrooms immediately. And that is that we're able to support a diverse set of learners. If you think back to all those different images and structures in the classroom, with Amplify Desmos Math, we have a true set of supports in the lessons at point of use in the moment, but also post-lesson support. So how do we support, strengthen, and stretch students, whether we're in those activities, or how do we support them post-lesson? And our program is going to be able to support you in supporting all those diverse learners. And then I always have to jump ahead of this. Oftentimes when you see our name, it's a big name, Amplify Desmos Math. Oftentimes when you think of the word Desmos, you immediately think digital. And you're right. The Desmos side of our program is all on our platform, but it doesn't mean that you have to get students on a device. Every single one of our lessons can be done in print. And in addition to them being able to be done in print, our print is the best. And I'll tell you why. We listened to teacher and student feedback, and we took that feedback and we made sure that this print resource was a resource. Maybe we're asking students to actually utilize their manipulatives right on the student page. But you're also going to notice there's space to do the math. So this is a big difference, right? I know that sounds so silly, that sounds so wild, but yes, in our print, there is space to actually do the math and show student thinking real time. For example, if you see here on the screen, I am going to be jumping into a lesson in just a little bit called double decomposition, but I want you to notice how large the print is. The font is large, and there's space for students to actually do that math. And so when we think about a new resource, it's often overlooked when we flip and we compare to different student books. The students actually helped us in designing this, and you'll see that in every single lesson in our program. So I think it's very important when we think about Amplify Desmos Math that we actually think about the print first. But that doesn't mean that we don't have digital. And if you're not familiar with the Desmos of our name, it is intuitive, it is impactful, and it highlights that student thinking real time. Here, what you see on the screen is one of our favorite lessons called Hamster Homes, where students are actually creating hamster homes for their hamster. And they're creating that home using different platform heights and different tube lengths. And with the secret sauce here is that they're going to have to figure out the different factors that go into that platform height based on their tube lengths. And as you can see, when they get the incorrect length of tubes, our hamster makes a very terrified face. And when the hamster actually gets to its food and you've created a home that is successful, it will give you an adorable little peace sign. So when we are asking students, hey, can you get on a device today because this lesson is a digitally recommended lesson, there is intentionality behind that. We're not just throwing our whole entire student book into an ebook format and giving you free reign. There's intentionality behind these activities. But I'm thinking about even my K1 teachers. If you're listening right now, you're going, oh my gosh, I'm so scared of getting students on a device. That's okay, because we actually grow up with the digital. So this is the amount of digitally recommended lessons by grade band that you see here on the screen. So roughly about one per unit in our K1 grades. Would we have a lesson where we would say it would be advantageous to get them on a device? Again, 100% of the lessons can be done in print. So if you're looking at this sixth grade example, one of the things that teachers really like about the print is still having them do paper pencil, but transferring it right into the digital so they could see that thinking real time, what we call responsive feedback. Or maybe you have some students, I'll throw my daughter under the bus, that just forgot to charge their laptop today. The beauty here is, yes, students can do it on a device, but maybe those students that don't have a charged laptop, they still have that same parity with that write-in consumable text. Let's move into some other differentiators, I would say. And that is one, that the math routines and language routines in our program, they're embedded at point of use. And we have facilitation screens to help facilitate all of those routines. And I do get a question a lot. How is fluency embedded in Amplify Desmos Math? And so what you're going to kind of see the greatest hits here. Not only will it be embedded in the lessons through our routines, things like number talks and choral counts, but you're also going to see them in our daily practice. There are centers embedded in this program for pre-K through fifth grade. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And then also online through our digital practice. And we'll talk about our fluency practice using spaced repetition in just a little bit. So here's a bird's eye view of our program across the board. We do follow a unit based approach. And then within those units, you'll have subunits. So think of subunits like chapters that focus on the major topics within that unit. You will also notice in K8, I get a lot of questions around spiral from as a whole. There's spiral practice within every daily practice. But in addition, in K8, we do have the ability to have practice days that also build on prior concepts and skills from earlier in the unit if you have the time allotted for that. These are additional practice days that help support the instruction. Now you're probably like, whoa, just got blindsided. James's whole family is now on the screen. That's odd. Let's jump into some fun stuff. Now, when I say fun stuff, this is the stuff that my kids love about our program as well. And you're probably looking at this picture and going, why are they dressed so oddly? I think that every day when they walk out of the house. But here, we are all dressed in our favorite Taylor Swift era. And I bring this up because, the Super Bowl just happened yesterday, but you might remember not long ago, there was a Super Bowl with Taylor Swift's fiance, and everyone was curious, is Taylor Swift going to go to the Super Bowl? You might not remember this, but during that Super Bowl, Taylor was performing in Tokyo. You might also remember this classic problem of if you're on a bullet train going from Singapore to this town, what time will you arrive, et cetera, et cetera. And none of us knew why we were doing that problem. None of us actually, a lot of us didn't even know what a bullet train was. But what was so unique about this Super Bowl piece was I had asked my daughters, are you going to come downstairs for our Super Bowl party? Their number one question was, is Taylor Swift going to be on TV? So Taylor Swift gifted us with a true context to that whole bullet train problem that none of us cared about. And it was so funny because most students never cared about that problem. And now students from all over the country were trying to actually solve this problem. So what did I exactly do? I sent my daughters to the kitchen island. I've never seen three children want to do math quicker. As a matter of fact, here's their notes here, and they have some unrealistic ideas on how long it would take Taylor to clean and pack. But you could see because of time difference, they were able to figure out she's actually going to get there a day early. And I bring this up because I'd never seen students so excited to actually tackle math when it mattered to them. And that is very similar to how Amplify Desmos Math works, because starting in pre-K and going up to fifth grade, we actually have unit stories. So these are read alouds. And for every single unit, you can actually read this story to students. And as they're going through that whole entire unit, they have context as to why they're doing what they're doing. So, for example, in second grade, you could see Benita here. Benita is trying to get her whole class to vote on a new class pet. Now, that's Mr. Roy. It is not me, but it does look a little similar. And Mr. Roy is getting his whole class to vote on a new class pet. This whole unit is all around data. And Benita gets them to change their vote from a guinea pig to a millipede. Now, throughout that whole entire unit, if you see here on the screen, look at all the lessons and activities where this story of Benita and the millipede will show itself. So as students are tackling those problems, they're not going to be asking you why are they doing what they're doing. Another one I always just like to bring up that is really popular in fourth grade, there is a unit story where a young girl and her mom have purchased an old home. Like it's very old. It's had a lot of different tenants in it. And the young girl wants to know why each room is decorated differently because they're about to remodel this whole entire house. So when we're working with area and perimeter and arrays, This young girl is going to be retiling her kitchen. They're going to build a garden shed in the back. And so as they're tackling a very core concept that we test heavily on with area, they're actually they're actually remodeling this whole house in that whole process. So it's a really cute way. And speaking of cute, so I mentioned pre-K. If anyone's interested in pre-K, we even have those unit stories in pre-K. And what's cute is sometimes in those unit stories, characters and themes, they grow up into kindergarten. So for example, in kindergarten, we have a group called the Polytopians, which are our polygons. But in kinder, they're just younger and littler. And spoiler alert, we even have stuffies coming for those little Polytopians. Come on, how cute is that? So when you're looking at Amplify Desmos Math, the nice thing about the program is it was built from the ground up, and it was built pre-K to 12th grade. And giving us the opportunity to start from scratch and build it from scratch gave us a clear coherence piece and structure piece. So regardless of what grade we are talking about, every single one of our lessons starts with a warm up. We are activity based with true structure around those activities, and then opportunities to synthesize and reinforce. We're going to get way more in the weeds here with this in a second. But when you're looking at that structure, we like to follow something called a proficiency progression. So when you look at the structure of those lessons, you'll see that we're first starting with students' own generated ideas and curiosities. What I love about our warm-ups, every single student can do our warm-ups. And that is key. When you think about a lot of those students that when you say it's time to turn math on and they just want to turn it off right away, this is a great way to ease them into our lessons because they're all going to be able to do our warm-ups. So as you're looking at that progression through a lesson, I think it's really important to see how we're going to be able to practice and reinforce and how we get there through this stepped out progression. In addition to that, when you think about progression, something that teachers ask me all the time is they will ask, are you going to use this one algorithm? Are you going to show this one model? So teachers really appreciate that in our teachers edition, at the subunit level, we do show the progression of skills, of language, and strategies throughout each one of those subunits. So regardless of you even reading here, you can kind of see just visually in one of our units as I go through the progression of the different types of math that students are going to be tackling and really moving into that deep application. So when you think about CRA, for example, this is a really good example of how we develop those skills across the whole entire unit. Now, I'm going to jump into our platform really quick and we'll kind of debrief on the structures and supports afterwards. But I did think it would be fun if we kind of highlighted just some of the technology and some of the supports that teachers have. Now, remember, every single lesson can be done in print, but another unique thing is every single lesson has screens. So if we're getting students on a device or we're not, you have screens to help facilitate all your activities. And if you do get them on a device, you'll be able to see all those student screens and them working real time. Here, this is from that Benita unit story when we were talking about her millipede. And we're just going to first show you a little bit of how the technology works. So here it's just asking me to choose two blocks. What do I notice? What do I wonder? So this is a warm up. I promise I know how to make a 10, but it's actually not even asking me to make a 10. And as students are working with different combinations, you might start to notice that my combinations are falling into different places. So we'll just go ahead and throw a few in there. And I always like to ask teachers, how could I replace a number? So how could I replace an 11, for example? Well, maybe a combination of 8 and 4. As you could see, students are starting to realize, oh, this is going in sequential order. And I'm just going to speed up here to another activity in this lesson that I really enjoy. This is a lesson or an activity where we are asking students to create a pattern. And if we were doing this in print, those are actual strips that students could create their own patterns with. And as you're visually looking at this, I'm going to go ahead and just start dragging some pieces over here quickly. Now, immediately, when I get to about here, teachers will notice, oh my gosh, you didn't actually give us all the tools that we want to make our pattern. And we did that intentionally. So my primary teachers, if you're on right now, you know there is a big difference between 3 and 7 and 3, but I don't actually have 7 and 3. And so what we're doing is we're creating disequilibrium. And what that means is creating this frustration point in an activity where students would have to justify why they want to do what they would like to do, but they can't. And so we are nice. We do give them those tools on the next screen and we show them how to make those pairs. But as we move on to this lesson, when people ask me how is fluency embedded, you also see opportunities for our responsive feedback and building fluency directly in our second activity. I promise I know how to make a 10, but it's nice to see that feedback of when I don't have, let's go with a 3 actually, when I haven't made the combination correctly. So you're seeing that Desmos technology really start to highlight itself. Or if I were to jump to a fourth grade lesson, I chose this one specifically because of my daughter. So my daughter is struggling with 2-digit by 2-digit multiplication right now. And so we actually use this lesson to help support her in decomposing because she was finding it easier to find friendly numbers. So for example, 15 and 10, and then maybe 20 and 14. Now the power of the Desmos technology is that we're not pigeonholing students into one way to solve this problem. Every single student's decomposed figure will move on to the next screen, but other students might have decomposed it completely different. And for the sake of showing you the power of this feedback, I am going to get these wrong. I think it's very powerful to see what it's like in our platform when students are working in this environment. So you can see as I'm trying to solve, I'm getting that feedback real time. It's a really popular activity because it's showing you, instead of a big red X, it's showing you your math real time. And then the last one I just had to pull in here because, again, I'm thinking of my daughter. So let's jump into right here. My daughter is so confused by the distributive property, and rightfully so. When we're drawing those giant arrows and we're just like, why are we doing this? What is the purpose of this? We got into this lesson, and I'm going to get this one wrong as well. But notice when I'm creating my area model here, to check the math, it's going to actually show that visual representation and why the distributive property even makes sense. And I can go in and make those adjustments real time based on the feedback that I'm getting. Now, just because we're here on the screen, some other things to highlight before we jump back in. In the very bottom of the screen down here, you'll see it says teacher moves. So let me zoom in down here. So everything that's in the teacher's edition is also at point of use in this tray. So you don't have to walk around with your teacher's edition. Everything that you need is also on this screen. And so I get this question a lot, and I'm going to show you how easy it is. Let's go into, I'm going to choose third grade. I'm also showing you this just because if you want to go online, sign up for a demo account and test drive any of these lessons, you could do it today. And so you can see all the grades in one spot. I'm going to click on grade 3 and let's go unit 1. Now, as I scroll down, I mentioned every single lesson has presentation screens. These are editable, they're modifiable. You can actually put your name in that watermelon problem if you want. The customization is endless. But if you look off to the left, remember we're looking at third grade right now. Notice all those paper icons. What that's saying is these are all lessons that have to be done in print. We've built them in a way where maybe there's a lot more hands-on and manipulatives. But number 9, you can see there's no paper icon. That's highlighting that that lesson could be done in print or digital. So this is a print-based lesson. And again, I'm not going to call these slides because slides are stagnant, right? You can't actually manipulate anything in a slide. But if we're thinking about scaled bar graphs and the power behind those scaled bar graphs, as a teacher, I'm able to use these screens to help facilitate my activities, facilitate any type of conversations. And again, if I need any supports down here at the very bottom, I have sample responses and things that I can support students in the moment with. And if you have a smartboard and you want to go in and draw on these screens or highlight anything, you have the ability to do that as well. So again, everything can be done in print. Everything can, that's a digitally recommended lesson. You can obviously get students on a device for. So we're going to get back in there in just a second, but I want to highlight within the lesson just kind of how these structures hold true. So again, um, every teacher has a 2-volume, except for our K1, you have a little bit more, 2-volume teacher's edition, and students have a 2-volume write-in consumable text. When you are facilitating these activities within that warm-up, remember you have those presentation screens to facilitate those activities, and every single one of our activities follows a true structure of launch, monitor, connect. So launch being, how do I launch this activity whole group? Monitor, what to look for as a teacher as students are doing the math. Maybe they're working in pairs, small groups, or independent. This is telling the teacher as students are doing the math within that activity, what to be looking for so that when we come back to class and we come back whole group, you can synthesize the learning and connect the math. Now, the very beginning of this webinar, we were showing all those different images of different structures in the class. And you might have noticed that there was the I do, we do, you do. The elements were there. And I kept saying the recipe or the pathway you're going down might just be different. And it is. So think of the launch more as the you do for the students, then we do, and then the I do is just flipped. So again, instead of starting the class with here's how you do the math, we wrap up each activity with the I do. In the teacher's edition, you'll see right there where it says read aloud next to the number 2. I always like to point this out. Teachers have true support and guidance on how to use those screens. So it says number 2, but it's on a little presentation easel. And if you look at the screen on the top right, that's screen 2. So it's helping orient teachers into what screens go with which part of the lessons. And during that we do, I think one of the most popular things that resonates with teachers, I hear it every single time. This is their top 2 favorite things in the teacher's edition. That's because every single activity, we are actually helping teachers with what to look for and how to support in the moment. So if you remember at the very beginning of the webinar, I said there's in the moment, just in time scaffolding. So this is look for now what's for every single activity. For any big fans of the 5 practices for orchestrating discourse in the classroom, this comes straight from that. As students are doing the math, look for students to be doing it this way. And here's how you support, strengthen, and stretch them. And when we come back to connect, when we're selecting and sequencing that work, we can have some great discussions around these types of ways students were thinking. So you're able to actually have a nice little roadmap of look for now what's in that teacher's edition. You'll see all the math language routines and instructional routines embedded in those teacher's editions. And on top of all those math language supports that are in the teacher's edition, teachers also have an ancillary resource called the Math Language Development Resource Book. It's a long title. We just say MLDR. I know it's really long, but here's the beauty of the Math Language Resource. Every single lesson, this resource will help teachers with one of the activities in that lesson. It could be supporting students with different cognates. There could be language stems, language frames, sentence stems. But what it's doing is it's supporting your emerging, expanding, and bridging students in the moment. So this actually goes alongside the activities within the instruction. Teachers are obsessed with these, especially for those students. I think specifically with array, for example, and students not knowing what that, how to say array in Espanol, which looks like it's matriz, which is, you learn something new every day right there. I just pulled that out of my pocket. Within the rest of our lessons, or all of our lessons, there is an opportunity with what we call the show what you know, which is an exit ticket. And then there's an opportunity to synthesize the math and practice and reinforce. So with every single one of our lessons, practice is embedded in the student consumable. You'll see there's spiral practice as well. But if you feel like, you know what, James, I like so much practice and this isn't enough, you have additional practice for every single lesson. Starting at second grade, you can do our practice online as well. So you can assign that digital practice to have students do it on a device if you would like them to. And if Spanish is important to you, um, there is an ability to just go in and hit our language settings and change um, the platform and the activity directly to Espanol, and you'll even see the page there. So what do we do? We talked about the in the lesson moments and how we support strengthen and stretch. But what about after a lesson? Maybe you have win time or RTI time and opportunities for students to, after the core lesson, actually practice and reinforce. So this is a page directly from the Teacher's Edition, and it is saying how to support, strengthen, and stretch students immediately after that lesson. And before I even go into the weeds with this, something that was really smart that we did here, everything that is on that orange page is right here dissected at point of use for you, the teacher. So when I click differentiation beyond the lesson, the same resources that we're recommending, mini lessons, centers, extensions, are right here at point of use for you to be able to grab. So back to this screen, let's talk a little bit more about what they are. Mini lessons for our support students. These are 15-minute, really focusing on the skills that students would have needed to be successful in that lesson. So you might have identified during that monitor portion, you might have identified students that really are still struggling with key skills that should have helped them for that lesson. This has a teacher-facing page and, of course, a student-facing page. This is a print resource that you can pull students over to your kidney table with. Teachers love these. Love, love, love. Really helping students through a modeled review, guided practice, and a check for understanding. So really a three-step process there. Now, earlier I kind of alluded to centers. Centers are actually a part of pre-K through first grade. They're actually a part of the instruction and their center choice time. But that doesn't mean 2 through 5 you don't get centers, because they are also part of grades 2 through 5. And they work in a stage model. So if you're unfamiliar with the stage model, it's really building in skill complexity over time. If you notice, for example, grade 4, they are going to work with a game called Cover Up, but they're going to be working with 2-digit factors. Well, the first time they played Cover Up was all the way back in first grade when they added 1s or 2s. So teachers, you're going to be able to see all these skills, support all these skills using our centers. One of the biggest pieces of feedback that we got from teachers was, we love centers. These are great. However, please stop making us cut, print, and laminate stuff. So we created centers kits for you all. These centers kits are by grade level for each teacher. So if you wanted to play Cover Up, all you'd have to do is pull out the Cover Up bag and all of the game boards, the instructions, everything cut, printed, laminated for you. And if after today you go and you're like, sign me up, we want Amplify Desmos Math, we're sold, and you miss hearing my voice and you miss this mustache, you could just scan the QR code on that center kit and watch me do an unboxing video. So there's like a little Easter egg for you if you're just dying to see me after today. But these are great center kits that have everything that you need. Maybe there's a spinner or whiteboard, dry erase markers. Those things will be in there as well. And so what's great about these centers, everything is cut, printed, laminated for you. Pretty cool. You might also notice with the extension recommendations, these are at the subunit level. We are an asset-based approach, so these will not be above grade level, but more in rigor, maybe higher DOK, to really support your high flyers, and a great resource when we're trying to stretch students. Now, the last thing I want is for this to feel like a feature dump, but I kind of want to reel it back for a second before I talk about what's on this screen. I hope what you're hearing and what you're seeing is that the last thing you should be doing is going to teacher pay teachers. The last thing you're going to be doing is looking for other resources to support your instruction, because it is a full comprehensive suite of core and differentiation and assessment. So yes, I'm showing you a lot of tools that we have embedded in the program. That's because I want you to understand we're really going to be able to meet you and your class and your students exactly where they're at. For example, we have a personalized learning system where students can go online and get targeted feedback from a tutor as they're working in a personalized environment. And so our personalized practice is going to be a student on a device where they can get feedback from that tutor, and it will respond to them based on how they are solving these problems. In addition to that, I mentioned fluency at the very beginning. On top of all the fluency that's embedded in the core, we did partner with a group called Math for Love. If you're not familiar with them, they do what's called spaced repetition. And so what that is really, as you're seeing each one of these cards from box A, when you assign a deck, maybe it's 2-digit by 2-digit multiplication for my daughter. When you assign that deck, each time they get it right, and from box A, it goes to box B. And when they get it right in box B, it goes to box C. If they get it wrong in one of those boxes, it goes all the way back to box A. So you got to get it through box E to move into long-term memory. And here you're looking at how I could progress monitor a student and see what card is in each box as they are working through it. And you might also notice on top of the fluency or fact practice, there's even skill practice to help support your students. So you can assign and progress monitor them based on their skills. And then right before we kind of ease into assessment here, I do get this question a lot. Do you have the ability to create your own practice, your own quizzes, your own assessments? You 100% do, and the power of Desmos makes that easy. And this is done through our item bank. And so you're able to search by a standard or DOK level and be able to support students developing your own practice and quizzes, which I know some of us out there just like to do. So let's talk assessment. I mentioned core. I mentioned differentiation. So now let's talk big picture here. We're going to start with our benchmarking assessments. So I threw up some math here on the screen, and some of you are probably thinking, hey, I'm a third grade teacher. I didn't know I was going to have to look at some linear functions, for example. But I like to start with our benchmarking assessments and start with some data. So when you look at this item here, this is from a group of freshmen that we gave this question to. And we asked students to try and get it right. And 80% of them got it right. Now, you might notice this is a multiple choice question. So we actually gave this same item to the same students a year later. So they actually should know this concept even more. They should know it a little bit deeper, and it should be resonating with them. So just in the chat. Oh, I already spoiled it. I thought I put a different slide there. Never mind. You would have gotten the question right because it's on the screen. Disregard. When we remove the multiple choice to the same students, 45% got it right. And the big takeaway here is the validity of multiple choice benchmarks is not valid. Plain and simple. So how do we actually understand what students know and don't know? I'm going to give you a little bit easier math here and show you a kinder example from our mCLASS benchmark assessments. So in Amplify Desmos Math, we do have a beginning of year, mid-year, and end of year benchmark assessment, and there's progress monitoring also tied in. So this is an actual item from our kindergarten mCLASS assessment. Now you might be noticing one huge difference. No multiple choice. As a matter of fact, the only thing is my screen dark,
Yeah, we're
Keith?
seeing a completely black screen right now. There we go.
Really? That's better?
Yeah.
I have no idea what that is. Okay. How odd. Thank you. I think it was Karen. Glad I was reading the chat. Okay. That's very odd. So when you're looking at this kindergarten, let's now that you're really looking at it, you'll notice there's no multiple choice. Instead, it's open-ended. There is full audio support, but all we're asking students to do is tell us how many flowers are on this screen. And you might be thinking, there's no way there's that many different answers. We tested this with our field trial group and over 1,400 kinder students. We got 166 unique responses, and these are real responses. Take a second look at what the different students were doing. At first, it's kind of comical, and then you start to realize what each student was actually doing. And I can definitely figure out what Javi and Ezra were up to. Now, if this was multiple choice, they could have guessed correctly. They have a 25% chance of doing that. But now I have a lot more intel. So in mCLASS Math, we're actually able to take the math in that benchmark and then help provide pathways for our students based on how they're doing on these benchmarks. So
Jamie,
we've
your
already
screen just
talked
went
about
black again.
again.
Again. There we go.
Why is it doing that?
I don't know. It's strange.
Heath, I'm going to give you the weirdest job now because I can see you.
Yeah.
Each screen I go to, can you give me a thumbs up?
Yeah.
I have no idea why it's
I'll
doing it.
I'll do
It's
that.
not even uh Karen, and I'm with you. Just wait. Just wait. Um what's odd though is it's not black on my screen, obviously. But so now that you've heard about a lot of those resources that are in the core, right? Fluency practice, personalized learning, the mini lessons that we have. What we're able to do is based on skills, identify who might need what practice. And we're actually able to group those students and just say, oh, you want to assign them this specific personalized learning. You can push it out to just those students that are struggling with adding and subtracting with that 10. Or maybe your students are rocking it and they just need additional practice. So there's going to be an additional practice pathway. But this is the big takeaway. Other than my dog's barking really loud. I hope you don't. Sorry if that's really loud for you. It's not loud. Okay. But here's the big takeaway. With benchmarks, you can always get right these students' performance data. And based on multiple choice, we're starting to realize that data is not even that valid, right? But we're going to be able to give you those predictors on how students might do on state assessments, how students are doing on specific standards. You're going to get all that depth of data with our benchmarking assessments. What no one else can do is we have insights to the student thinking. And that's what an open-ended response does, is I can identify which students, when we're multiplying fractions, which ones we're subtracting the numerators. Like it will group our students based on their thinking. So it's much more actionable data for the teachers. That gives you a ton of reports. You can see a student thinking report off to the right, and our performance level data off to the left. In addition to these assessments, you have a ton of core assessments embedded in the program. Pre-unit assessments, sub-unit quizzes. In K1, a lot more oral or observational checklists. End-of-unit assessments with two forms, an A and a B. And performance tasks starting at third grade, and exit tickets with our Show What You Know, and again, our mCLASS assessment. And all of those assessments, when you start taking them digitally, starting in second grade, you can take those into unit ones, for example, online. You'll be able to have a full suite of data that really supports who's at that beginning, approaching, meeting, or exceeding level. You can get standards-based data. You can do a full item analysis. And what this is really telling you, again, is all the comprehensive tools that you have to support student growth. So before we wrap up, a few other things. When you think about adopting a new math program, there's always a lot of, well, how are you going to support us? And so I like to start with what we do in the program. One is we've built things like a Unit 0, which helps you ease into the program. The Unit 0 is, how do I teach the lessons? What does Launch Monitor Connect look like? Can I practice doing a digital lesson with my students? This is a unit that is it's optional, but it's a great way for you to onboard yourself and your students into Amplify Desmos Math. On top of that, we have unit overview videos, which really help teachers understand the framing of that unit and where you're heading and the progression of those skills. I think most importantly is our PD library, which is PD in your PJs. Whenever you can do it, whenever you can take it, there's a bunch of supports on everything from lesson planning and unit unpacking to what does a lesson look like. There's full lessons delivered by teachers and students. in the classroom where that you can watch what an Amplify Desmos Math lesson looks like. Then, you know, if you were to go ahead with utilizing our program, of course, we have professional development that's embedded as well. So we can support you from the start and ongoing, and make sure that you're set up for success. That's really when the relationship starts with schools and districts and Amplify, is as soon as you're ready to implement. So we have a team of specialists that make sure that you are set up for success for the long term. And all of that is something that I think is very crucial. You think about when you get like a new entertainment system in your house and you have no idea how to use it. I wish I had PD people that would come and show me how to utilize every new feature on that system. So I know a lot was thrown at you today. This is going to be recorded. You'll get a recording of it. Before we wrap up, though, I forgot I threw one last screen in here that I think is important, and that is how do you support parents and caregivers. There is a caregiver hub, which is something that parents and caregivers don't have to log into. And in that hub, there'll be at-home units, there's videos, there's supports for at-home instruction. Maybe Joey went to Disneyland for a week and you're like, is there anything they could be doing on that road trip? There's a great set of resources in here that are parallel to what you have in the classroom, but a great place for caregivers to go when they're trying to help whoever's in their household, or if they're wanting to do even more than what we're doing in the classroom. So Heath and myself, we appreciate all your time today. I know you're going to get a recording, but if there's any other questions that we haven't answered, please reach out to us. I see that, I don't know if Thomas was asking my temperature, but it's 80 degrees in Arizona, so I'm just rubbing that one in.
Yeah.
Oh, and Chris from Tucson's here, so that's great too.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining. We'll give it a nice little teacher wait pause here for a minute to see if any questions pop in. But if not, as James said, we recorded this session. You'll get a link to that recording in your inbox tomorrow. Don't be shy if you think of questions like, oh man, I should have asked that on that webinar. You can reply to that email and they'll route it to us and we can get you the answers you need. But looks like I'm not seeing any questions come in. The last slide answered a question Karen had, so thanks for that, James. And thank you all for taking time out of what I'm sure are very busy days in classrooms and schools across the country to learn a little bit more about Amplify Desmos Math. Thanks and have a good one.
Thanks, everyone.